All right, no fuel gauge. That's interesting.
Hey everybody, it's Dick here. Today I'm on BMW's R9T Urban GS. Like other R9Ts, it's an 1170cc 4-stroke air-cooled boxer twin engine. Maximum power is 108 brake horsepower, 85.6 foot-pounds of torque with a claimed top speed of 130 miles per hour. What sets the Urban GS apart from other R9Ts is the motocross styling with the mini windshield over the headlamp, the long banana duck-billed fender high up off the front wheel, and the elegant, if not garish, color scheme with that orange-red seat. The GS cult is up in arms about the GS badging on this. Let's see if they have ground to stand on. But first, your exhaust note. It was pointed out to me that the injectors are what's making this very disconcerting ticking noise, and that it is not some sort of mechanical fault. Happy I don't have to worry about that. Let's take it for a ride.
Hey everybody, it's Dick here. Today I'm on my new friend Costas's BMW R9T Urban GS. He has kindly let me take it out for a ride, and it was a bit cloudy and gray and threatening some weather, but as soon as he started this thing up for me, the sun came out. That's saying something, don't you think? If you remember my other video on the R9T Scrambler, I really quite enjoyed the R9T Scrambler. I felt a bit seduced by it. I think the Urban GS, when it came out, and probably still, gets a little flack for... Wow! You're not kidding, Costas. Holy shit. There is torque at the high end of this bike. I don't know what my voice sounds like, because I just hear wind noise and I feel the microphone in the back of my throat. Let's pull it back a little. This thing cooks with gas. Coming out of warp. I can't imagine what anyone has seen on that shot. So this little windshield here does actually a very good job at getting the wind just about there, right over my helmet. I was saying that the Urban GS gets a bit of flack for having the GS name to it, because GS was really reserved for those round-the-world tourers, off-road adventure bikes. I don't know why this bike gets that much flack, because this is the original GS 1200 engine, so it has more GS DNA than R9T DNA. The R9T was built off of that old GS drivetrain, that old GS motor. The steering dampener, the factory installed steering dampener is quite good, because when you're up at high speeds, you really got to hold on, and it takes a bit of the wobble out of that speed. You're kind of blown back on this thing when it gets really fast. It kind of drops down on that rear wheel, and the front wheel kind of lifts a bit, and it just goes and goes and goes. So that steering dampener is greatly appreciated right now. Well, we always knew that BMW is fast and it can do well on the highway, and that little bit of wind protection there goes a long way. There's a nice little snap to this exhaust that I didn't notice on the Scrambler exhaust. It's still got that great little side-to-side swagger ass hip shake, that little hip click that I love about BMWs. I really like the geometry. I don't know if you hear that. It's just a nice little kind of burble, trumpety noise. I don't know if part of me thinks that this is the same geometry as the Scrambler. The handlebars might be a dash wider, if I'm being honest, but it reminds me a little bit of the Scrambler. I felt maybe on the Scrambler I was leaning forward a little bit more, but I'm really enjoying the geometry of this, whether it's different or not. These are aftermarket kind of plastic bark buster things, which I did notice when I was at speed. I did notice the wind being deflected off of my hands. It's got a GPS on here, which I never ride with a GPS, but I'm really appreciating it there right now because I'm in foreign lands. I always like the round high mirrors. People usually switch those very early. Yeah, I love that downshift, There's lots of low-end torque on this, and I think it's the same tuning as the Scrambler. I'm trying to remember back, but I'm appreciating it, whether it's the same or different. 19-inch front wheel on this makes it a little bit higher. Feels a dash higher than the Scrambler. I like the 19-inch front wheel on it. It's got a 17 in the back. The ground clearance is pretty good. I mean, people are like, oh, this can't be an off-roader. This can't be a GS, a proper GS because of the kind of R9T DNA of it, but it's no lower than I'd think a lowered rally GS. It's a cool little bridge. It doesn't feel that much lower than the GS Rally Edition with the lowered seat height and the lowered suspension. And for anyone who says that this isn't kind of a round-the-world bike, there's a guy he's in London, I think, who took a Scrambler from the tip of South America up to the Dalton Highway in Alaska. So he put a bash plate on it, and he rode his Scrambler on all those roads. So I think there's a bit too much criticism against this thing, kind of unfairly. I do like the look of this front kind of rally fender and the orange, white, and blue, or the red, white, and blue, whatever you want to call it, that orange, reddish-orange seat. This is, to me, the best-looking R9T. Through this town stuff, I'm actually quite comfortable. Low-speed balance is nice. Some people give flack for that side-to-side action of the engine. It's not bothersome at all. Haven't really noticed that the vibrations that I noticed on the Scrambler. I'll wait until my excitement wears off and see if there's any. Ooh, what was that? Getting used to the balance and the slow stuff when I just take a left turn. I mean, for me, it was a little high for my wife. My wife threw a leg over it. A little high for her. She was kind of on tiptoes if she was trying to put both feet down, which made her a dash uncomfortable. I can get flat-footed on this, but not that much of a bend in the knee. So that gives you an idea of the height. I'm 5'7" on a good day. Clutch isn't all that heavy. I remember the Scrambler clutch feeling heavy after a while, and I don't know if that's going to be the case. It is hydraulic, so that might get heavy over time. I do like that minimal. I mean, this is a bit of an eyesore, but it's very usable. But I do love that minimal gauge. That minimal gauge is the stuff. I mean, it's only miles per hour. There's really not a lot of information. I have a clock on there. There's a menu button over here. I'm wondering what that is. ABS traction control, heated grips. That's very posh if you think about it. Costas was telling me that the seat's so narrow and that rear tire is so wide. This is a different rear tire than on the Scrambler too, so it's kind of fat. I think it might even be a 190. If it's not a 190, it's definitely a 180. The sidewalls kind of flare out and give you a lot more contact patch on the edge. And he said it just sprays you with water at the back. So he's put an aftermarket hugger on it. You'll probably see that you'll probably notice that from the walk around. But that rear hugger probably helps a little bit. But he said this thing is very fun to ride, but it doesn't take care of you the way kind of a touring bike would, or something with a bit more consideration to the rider. It's very much a fair weather friend, I suppose. Now we're getting on some good roads out of that town. Through the town, I went through the town on purpose. Oh crap, I wanted to, you know what's funny? I'm on this road, I'm enjoying this road. GPS told me to take that back road over there, and as I'm following along on this road, I'm thinking, oh, that road looked nice, but the GPS told me to take that road, so I gotta pull a U-ey and go down that road that looked fun in the first place. Whoo-hoo, look at this. Maybe we will get a sense of its off-roading capabilities with street tires. I'm a little hunched over and standing up, but standing up is actually, the bars need to be higher, put risers on if you're going to do some serious off-roading on this, but the balance is really nice, and I don't know if you can see that beak out in front of me, but that's quite fun. You can definitely shift your weight on the pegs really nicely. I don't know if the styling is just making me look for roads like this, but the low-end torque on that was really nice. I think it was in second gear and just kind of puddling along. But I didn't even need to kind of feather the clutch. The torque was so nice and the power range was so nice. I could just really control it with the throttle, which is ideal. Now these are the types of roads I like bringing my Royal Enfield on, because the Royal Enfield likes going 40 and it's really torquey and you get a real sense of kind of old school British motorcycling on it. And I don't tend to take larger displacement bikes on roads like this because I always feel like you're kind of reining them in. But this is actually really enjoyable on this. The torque and the low down and the mid-range torque on this is just a dream. Glorious. It's just all throttle control. Just pick a nice gear and you can, it's just so good. That's a lot of fun. I'm really quite impressed again with the R9T and generally very impressed with this GS version. I think they call it the Urban GS because, you know, they know they're going to get shit. Look at this road. That's so cool. You just got to watch for the locals who come speeding up from the other side like maniacs. But yeah, look at that. Ha! This little narrow hobbit trail. I don't know. A bike with a big, fat, long front banana fender on the front. You just feel at home in little single tracks like this. Wow. I forgot what I was saying. I'm just having too much fun. Yeah. I think the Urban GS, they put the Urban name on it because, there's a low branch. They put the Urban name on it because, you know, the R9T it's a road bike, it's an urban bike, and they wanted to avoid some of the criticism that they're getting for calling it a GS. But it is, I have a GS, and there is a GS spirit to this bike. I think GS is short for the German name for all roads, or I gotta look it up, but I think I remember it saying like all roads, and I think this could be an all-road bike. I've ridden these roads with this kind of gravel track in the middle and felt really uncomfortable on them in the past, but I'm not feeling uncomfortable on this. I love the geometry. I'm a little forward, a little further forward than a more relaxed, but than the Royal Enfield. It's a little sportier, and there's mid-controls here. I say mid-controls, but they're slightly back than mid-controls. But the geometry is making me feel really confident in controlling this bike. I'm feeling really confident and really under control. Being able to kind of shift my weight, shift the balance, fore and aft, side to side. I'm really, really loving it. Who would have thought that an R9T would be a B-road cruiser? Because of all the power it has, you know, you just blast down the highway. But really, it's a lovely slow road bike too. This is usually the people who live out here. Those big SUVs, because they live in the country, quote unquote, 20 miles from London. I need a big truck. You can tell that guy's a local, driving a Rover station wagon. He knows exactly what kind of car you need out here. Hedgerows. I do like the height of this. It's a little higher than the Scrambler, I can tell you that now. I'll have to see what the exact height difference is, but the height of this makes it feel like a little bigger of a bike than your box standard R9T. And when you can see further ahead, you can let it rip a little. I'm really enjoying this ride. I don't know what I can tell you about the R9T that anyone hasn't already said about it. And like I said, the GS version gets a lot of guff, but I think it's a really smart version of it. Yeah, seat height is definitely higher But I actually appreciate that. I was one of the things I was thinking on the Scrambler is if only it were a little higher, and I know a lot of people don't say that about bikes. I started riding bikes on cruisers, and you're kind of dragging your ass along the ground, and you don't really understand how a commanding ride height gives you a bit more confidence and control, especially in car traffic. But I'm liking this height. Seems like the sweet spot for this setup. And liking it's a lot better than the Scrambler. Someone's going to tell me it's exactly the same as the Scrambler. Well, even if it is exactly the same, I'm not feeling it's exactly the same. It feels higher. Maybe it's that if it is the same, then the appointments to it are giving it a more commanding feel. Whoa, 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 ABS. You want me to go? Thank you. I got it. I was going, 20 miles an hour there, and it still felt like that guy came up fast. But the ABS kicked in nicely. I mean, a lot of people they insist on buying bikes that have ABS to turn off ABS. I think my GS has the option of turning off ABS. That computer's thinking a lot faster than I am. Look at that view. Look at this ride. This is awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm not getting any vibrations, minor vibrations in the handlebars, but I could be on this bike all day long. The seat's rather flat. The seat's flat. It's got a little bit of an incline. But I'm not uncomfortable. The seat's got a little bit of an incline. There's no real sculpting to it. It's that heritage flat seat bullshit. But it's quite comfortable. It actually conforms. It's almost like a memory foam. I'm sure it's not a memory foam, but it feels like a little bit like a memory foam because it kind of conforms. Oh my gosh. That was all front brake. That was panic mode. Seeing that SUV come around the corner. I think I've said before, the key to these British roads is not to die. Seems everyone's out for a Sunday ride today. Anyway, the seat material seems to be conforming to the muscles and fat and bone in my ass, and it's quite comfortable. Been on this a while now, and I don't feel fatigue in my lower back, and I don't feel any fatigue in my ass. I'm not uncomfortable. I don't feel like I want to get off this bike anytime soon. Suspension's really supple. It's been a while since I've ridden a bike on roads like this over these bumps that it hasn't sent a shock of lightning into my spine. It might even be a little bouncy, a little cush. But I am very comfortable on this bike. I'm really enjoying everything about it. So much for my speedy hill climb. I didn't have as much prejudice against this bike as other people have, but I do like being pleasantly surprised by things. And this is a very pleasant surprise. The kind of dirt bikey feel to it, the geometry of it is really making this shit, that's torque. The geometry of this is really making the most of the power band on this engine. I really feel like this is a smart resolution to the R9T. I mean, the R9T is kind of like a blank canvas, and you can do a lot with it, and BMW have done a lot with it. But this version of it is quite fun. I think it's my preferred version. Stalled it. I know the sat-nav says I should go the other way, but this is one of those motorcycling choices that when you see a road, you can either follow the way it tells you to go or you can follow the road that's calling you. This is the road that's calling me. The sat-nav can recalculate because I'm following this thing for a bit. It's a little slick through here and gravelly, but not feeling uncomfortable. The power band on this is just so lovely. Just control it by the throttle. It's accelerating, decelerating. There's a lovely engine braking. ABS is fucking awesome. just silently riding these roads, guys, because I'm just really enjoying. There's no analytics here. There's nothing to analyze. There's nothing to think about. This bike is just performing exactly the way I'm expecting it to. It's intuitive. It kind of anticipates how I'm going to ride it, actually. I think that was in second. Third. I just pulled away at third. Super line turns will give you a heart attack. You know, a lot of times you're riding bikes and you're like, if this were different or if that were different. I spend a lot of time on bikes and I spend a lot of time thinking about bikes and thinking about how they ride and thinking about what I'd like better, thinking about how I'd change it. This is a very, very, very nice bike. I'm hard pressed to find what I don't like about it. I mean, the scrambler I took out for an hour from a dealership, and it gives you an idea. You know, you're lucky if you can get out of central London onto a highway that gets you to highway speeds. You're definitely not going to be going long enough to get out on roads like this. And so you can understand the urban appeal. Horse. I'm going to cut the engine. You can understand the urban appeal of the R9T, and you kind of get an idea of what it's going to be like out in the city, but I had no idea the fun it would be out here. I kind of thought it would be a bit unmanageable on these roads, a bit kind of longing to let the horses run. It's kind of like what Triumph's doing with its 1200 Bonneville engine these days. It's tuning it for the different types of riding they anticipate for the style of bikes. So the HT, the high torque version for the cruiser, the HP high power version for the speed twin. It's hard to anticipate how someone's going to ride a bike, or you kind of want an all-arounder. I have lots of different bikes, and each bike kind of does its own thing well. But there's very few of them that are all-arounders. This one definitely feels like an all-arounder to me. This could be the one bike to rule them all, which is a very rare thing for me to say. Don't let my wife hear you say that, because she'll encourage me to sell all the ones that are filling up the garden and the garage and spaces back in the States, and we can have just one bike, and then she can get her bobber. It's fun. It's fun. I'm feeling active. I'm feeling like it feels like motorsport. It's very rare that I ride a motorcycle and I feel a part of that motorsport sensation. But this feels like motorsport. I feel engaged. I think this is another one of those bikes that the owners who pull the trigger and don't listen to the kind of side chair critics and just really choose something that they're drawn to and they're attracted to and they know works for them. They know something we don't know. What was I saying? Yeah, ignore the armchair critics when they say this isn't a GS. It's probably fucking better than a GS. The GS name is lucky to be on this thing. They should be thanking BMW for calling this a GS. Despite that little windshield sending most of the wind up over my helmet, the wind that comes from either side of the headlight, and definitely from underneath, there's lots of wind coming from under here, which is an odd sensation. There's a lot of wind coming up over the tank, and that hits me right in the chest. I'm not bothered by it. I do like motorcycles that, I'm wearing a full face helmet now, but the puts the wind in your face, so to speak. Wow, this thing cooks. This thing is nice. I'm really loving the balance of it. I think I'm in love. This woman, that's a picture, huh? I'm gonna just get a little, stay behind her for a little minute. Open top, red convertible, sheep in the field, hedgerows. She's got a little scarf on her head. That's a time machine right there, people. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know if I want to give this bike back. I wonder if he'll take a trade. He seems like an open-minded guy. 2 bikes for 1? That's it! Oh my gosh! My 2 primary English bikes is my Royal Enfield Classic 500 and my GS, my F700 GS. And this bike has the best qualities of both of them. It eliminates the kind of sleepiness. It eliminates the kind of sleepiness of the GS. This is a GS, sorry to confuse you. It eliminates the sleepiness of the F700 GS, and it eliminates the lack of power on the Royal Enfield. This thing, dare I say, is a hybrid of my existing 2 bikes. Maybe that's why I'm enjoying it so much. I'm sure there's shortcomings, but so far I haven't found them. This does bounce a bit, doesn't it? This plastic thing. That's a bit distracting. But it creates a lovely shadow for that display there. Gives you an idea how small that car is. If I'm lauding over in an R9T, even if it is the highest R9T. Again, through town, really quite comfortable. Not upsetting, no vibes, no unsure tips or imbalance. Weight's really quite nice. Low speeds, there's a lot of control. Again, just completely off the clutch. Throttle control. Let's try and figure out the niggles I have on this bike. I'm now on it for about an hour and 20 minutes. Have not taken 1 break off of it. I lie. 2 minutes walk around video. 1 minute 40 seconds walk around video. Other than that, uninterrupted on this bike. Still very, very comfortable. I could say my butt's starting to get a dash fatigued. And I don't know if it's because of the stop and go of the town stuff. A little bit of fatigue in my butt. Vibrations have not become intolerable. I do like the width of these handles. Fuck you. I do like the width of these handlebars. You really can maneuver this bike with just a thought. Right around 50 miles an hour, the wind machine kind of kicks on. I don't know how much that long beak out front is kind of creating some sort of buffeting, kind of displacing wind and sending weird wind up and below. But the wind machine kind of comes on. I'm not bothered by the wind. You kind of get 70, 80 miles an hour, you start getting a wind sail, kind of windbreak feeling with your arms and shoulders and chest, but it's not upsetting. I can probably think over time on the highway that would become an issue, but if I was riding this bike on a long ride, and I would definitely ride this bike on a long tour, if I was riding this bike on a long ride, I wouldn't go on the motorway. This bike doesn't ask to be. It'll do it, and it has the power to do it, and it'll be fine. You might get tired with the wind over and take more frequent breaks than on a fared bike, but I think I'd avoid the motorways at all costs with this bike, just for the fun of it, not for the performance. Not like how I avoid the motorways at all costs on my Royal Enfield. There's a very different reason I avoid the motorways at all costs on my Royal Enfield. Part of me thinks that the seating position might get tiring and I'd want to put my legs out or something, but I'm really not inclined to do that. I'm really not all that uncomfortable. I don't feel the need for a lot of adjustment. I can slide around on this seat as I need to in turns, and I have a lot of room behind me to slide back onto it, but the seating position has not become uncomfortable. Yeah, this suspension is nice and supple. It's taken up a lot of things that would give me some ass ache on other bikes. There's definitely 2 different torque bands. There's power at low RPMs and kind of up to about 6,500, 7,000 RPM. And then just above that, there's a whole other life to this bike. There's 2 different, it's almost like they've piggybacked. It's almost like they've piggybacked the rev range into each gear. Like it's 6 gears. It's almost like you have 12 gears. Because you're not kind of flabbergasted at the top there. You're not looking for power. You kind of reach the peak of it, and then boom, it goes again. You kind of reach the peak of it, and then you got a little bit, you got a whole other, starts over. Interesting though, there are these cutouts on either side of the tank, and I assume it's for really hugging it with your knees. And I tend to remember doing that on the Scrambler a lot more than I'm doing it on this. And I don't know if it's because the handlebars are wider, or if I'm sitting more upright, or if I feel taller. It's very difficult. It's actually very difficult for me to pinch my legs in to grip the tank on this. I don't know if the seat's wider on the GS, or I don't know what it is, but I'm not able to naturally hug the tank with my knees as I did on the Scrambler when I rode it. That's not an issue. I don't feel like that's an issue. I'm just mentioning that. It's not a problem for me. Yeah, it's different. I was riding my first Moto Guzzi, and it has opposed cylinders, and I thought to myself that it was very similar to the BMW Boxer engine. But as I rode it longer on the Moto Guzzi, I noticed that even at the acceleration points, like here, if I was to accelerate here, I would feel that kind of side-to-side snap, or swagger that I quite like, and it became annoying on the Moto Guzzi. I've been trying to instigate this to do the same thing, and it doesn't do it. It's at the start, at the line, you get that snap and that kind of swagger and that hip shake. But really, it's very linear. It's very straight when you're in the riding, when you're in the power band. It's not giving me that side-to-side hip snap that I was getting on the Moto Guzzi. Oh, and it just has oodles of power, oodles of speed. I'm at church, man. What's that new hymn? The Church of BMW. This guy's gonna pull out. Nope. Hazard perception test. Click. My wife Fanny's taking her UK bike license training, and she's training on these hazard perception tests. And I'm doing it with her. And the new test or the new preparations, there's only one hazard that you have to watch in like over a minute and a half or whatever. Let's see what this does. Oh, it just soaks it up. Just soaks it up. I think I was on a bike yesterday where it bottomed out the suspension on one of those. And this thing is just caca. Oh, that's awesome. Usually avoid these. Ooh, I engaged the traction control on that one. Look at this. I'm having a wonderful time. And the shit road too. Yes!
If you like that video and you want to see more like them, hit like, share, and subscribe.